Got to get yourself ready. Got to get yourself pumped up, guys. We are back for the Premier League preview. It's not the Premier League this weekend, though. It's the FA Cup. So we're talking all the big games in the FA Cup this weekend, including the big match between Manchester City and Arsenal this evening. But we'll also be looking at some Manchester United, Reading, and we'll touch a little bit on De Zerbi's Brighton facing Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. That's going to be a big one, guys. Do get into the chat, all your thoughts, all your feelings right now. Mark, straight away. I thought selling Jesus was like putting all the apples in one basket. No, plan B. Big moves there from Ant. Again, we'll talk about the Haaland situation as the stream goes forward. I'm not saying that Haaland's letting himself down this season. I just think City, at times, should be playing with a false 9. But Haaland can still be that 11, and we'll talk tactically how that works as the stream goes forward today. We've also got a lot of breaking news this morning. Some exciting news for Arsenal fans to touch on. And also some other news in the world of football. But guys, shall we get the party started? Shall we dive straight into the action? Actually, before we do that, Infinite Paradox, Arsenal's second defeat of the season incoming, could happen. Big shout out to Prince Bright in the chat as well, a comedian from Italy. Go and check him out. And Sully in the chat. Dave, now a question. Is it a total disaster if Arsenal don't win the title? They've got a lead. They should be going for it. But I think that they will do. The quality of the team right now is absolutely brilliant. And Infinite talking about, will Arsenal focus on the league over the FA Cup? I think Arteta's going to play a strong team. I think that comes from, the fact that Arsenal, their next game is next weekend. Yeah, it's on the 4th of Feb. So basically Arsenal have got a week to prepare for the next game. So I think, they'll go full strength against Manchester City, full singing, full dancing, and it'll be a brilliant game of football tonight. I've actually got a ticket for tonight's game, but I've got to go down to London for Sky Sports tomorrow. Oh well. But guys, let's dive into the news. The news that's broken this morning about Arsenal, which I think is very, very interesting, is that Arsenal have submitted a £60 million bid for Moises Caicedo. This would be such a statement signing. Reports are that Chelsea had a £55 million deal verbal proposal rejected in January, as Brighton want to keep the player. Brighton slapped a bit of a price tag on Caicedo of around £80 million. Is Caicedo worth 80 million? For me, absolutely. I am a massive fan of Caicedo. He's probably one of my favourite midfielders to watch in the Premier League right now. And when you're looking at for Arsenal, I think the beauty of where he could fit in for Arsenal, bring Caicedo into the team. I think number one would be the replacement of Granit Xhaka. Coming into that role, Granit Xhaka, the older out of Partey, and Xhaka's 30, Thomas Partey's 29. But also, if you're looking in the super long term, bringing in Fabio Vieira into the team. Vieira maybe moving into the 10 position. Odegaard playing right central midfield, and Caicedo kind of playing as a deep line playmaker on the right-hand side. I think this is this would be an unbelievable bit of business for Arsenal. I think that midfield is the long-term vision for Arteta, of getting Fabio Vieira with Odegaard in that attacking midfield zone when Arsenal have possession, having Caicedo play that role. I think the big thing with Caicedo, why I love him so much, is because he can play as a 6 and he can play as an 8, and he is a fantastic talent. Recently I went back and I watched his some of his performances from when he was in Ecuador, Caicedo, and he was absolutely superb. And I don't know why Manchester United didn't put the bid in for him. The thing that really struck me then in Ecuador was his technical ability and his ability to hit passes with the perfect weight to the right foot. In Ecuador, the pitch is obviously not great in Ecuador. Caicedo would just run the show, dwell on the ball, control the tempo, move things around. Absolutely brilliant. Shout out to Johnny, shout out to Liam, shout out to Levy in the chat, and D as well. Good to see you as well. Dan, Augustus, all the good people of the chat are here, and Robert Carter, welcome. Are you selling the ticket? I think I'm passing it on to one of my pals because, we're just going to go with my mates. One of my mates is a City season ticket holder, so he's kind of helped us out and got us the tickets. Been to a few City games this season, just to enjoy the football. Went to see them play in the Champions League against Borussia Dortmund and Copenhagen. The Dortmund game was a brilliant game. Bellingham scored. Good game of football. Really enjoyable. But anyway, back to Moises Caicedo. I think the thing that he's got in terms of his ability, The kid is now playing in very much in a defensive midfield position under De Zerbi. So how Brighton set up at the moment is that they have a kind of box 4 at the back where you've got the 2 centre-halves and the 2 defensive midfielders, and then they basically move around to create this little box to progress through the first line. I love De Zerbi's Brighton, but you can also see how good that average position is there. You've got a little diamond in midfield, you've got 2 wide players, you've got the 2 fullbacks. This is poetry in motion from De Zerbi. But yeah, Caicedo more of the defensive part of the midfield right now, which is a bit of a flip from, I'd say, last season when Graham Potter played him more as a box-to-box midfielder. I think he excels in both roles. He's literally one of my favourite players in the Premier League. You look at his statistics this season, he's improved his progressive passes, his passes into the final third, his tackle numbers, his interception numbers, all on the up. And as you can see from the statistics against Everton, an assist, 3 chances created, completed 91% of his passes, 1 big chance created, 1 shot in the game, won 2 out of his 3 tackles, 3 interceptions. The guy is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I think the big thing with Arsenal, obviously looking at them, he's kind of the perfect player to really come in for me. Obviously, the other alternative for Arsenal, which they've been linked with heavily over the last few months, has been Declan Rice. And a question coming in from... Where's the question gone? From Samuel. Talk about Rice versus Caicedo. So they are very much different players. Caicedo's kind of that new school, dribbling, carrying player that's going to beat you with a bit of finesse in there. I think Rice is kind of a little bit of an old school carrier and dribbler. I think if Arsenal were to bring in Rice over Caicedo, would be a brilliant deal. Declan Rice could sit playing as that kind of halfback, controlling midfielder, but also if they were both brought in, which could be the long-term plan for Arsenal, you could play Caicedo as that more of the 8, Rice is more of the holder, or alternatively you could play Caicedo as the holder, Rice as the 8. That's why I think both of these 2 players have been so good. Declan Rice, the last few seasons in the Premier League, was playing as the 6. Now he's been moved to play more as an 8 role as Thomas Souček holds the midfield. Like, if Arsenal were to buy both, that is a humongous upgrade on Thomas Partey and Granit Xhaka for the long term. And I'm not talking about big. I think Partey and Xhaka have been brilliant, but we're talking long term. Both those players, they're going to be the north side of 30 very, very soon. Xhaka's already there. So you've got to think long term. Declan Rice, Caicedo, 2 of the best young defensive midfielders in the Premier League. And Arsenal would continue their dominance in that sort of sense. If I were to pick one for Arsenal, I would probably go with Caicedo. I think that's for the Fabio Vieira shout. I think Fabio Vieira's got a long-term position in Arsenal's central midfield. I think he provides a lot of quality on the underlap. We saw a really good goal that Arsenal scored against, was it Wolves? Odegaard, where Vieira basically span in behind, Jesus fed him, and then Odegaard made that late run. I think that with Arsenal's midfield, I'd say Fabio Vieira is more of that Kevin De Bruyne, and I'd say Odegaard is more of the goal-scoring midfielder. That's what we did some analysis this week on the main channel. Make sure you go and check that out, and check out that video. Very, very interesting. Paradox in the chat, is Arsenal's current squad enough for them to win the Premier League? I was looking at that today. I was looking at the squad and the substitutes, and yeah, it's good enough. You've got a lot of quality. I think the one place where you probably got to get some recruitment in is in defensive midfield. That's the only place, but I don't think it's a massive problem. I think when El Nene's come in this season, he's been good for Arsenal, so it's not a massive drop-off, but it's a bit of a drop-off. But if Caicedo comes, there ain't no drop-off. There's an improvement there, which is pretty mad. But you think about Arsenal got, Tomiyasu to come in, Tierney to come in, that offers a different fullback option. They've got Eddie Nketiah, who's obviously deputising at the moment. Smith Rowe still to come back into the side. Leandro Trossard now. There's real depth in this Arsenal squad, and Edu deserves all the credit. But also to Arteta for coaching these guys. Let me know what you think. Do Arsenal have enough squad depth to win the Premier League? Get into the chat right now and let me know. Right, should we move on to the actual game? The actual game between the 2 clubs. So a little bit of Caicedo chat. Obviously, I think he's brilliant. Superb footballer, would be great for Arsenal. But I'd also like to see him play for Brighton till the end of the season, because I just really enjoy watching Brighton right now. They are the team to watch for me in the Premier League. You look at the last few games, just goals, and goals. The lowest amount of goals in the game was against Liverpool, and that was a fantastic game of football. Just 3 goals in that game. Just 3. Essential departure. It's a massive drop-off to El Nene. It changes the whole system. Innocent is saying replace Partey right now and then Rice in the summer. That'd be ridiculous if it was Caicedo, Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard. That is a disgusting midfield. Disgusting in a very, very good way. But guys, let's wrap back to the game for this weekend. We're going to talk a little bit about the match, but I think more importantly, it's kind of both sides and where they are right now and where's the next kind of step for them. There is a title race. That's what both clubs are probably going to be more focused on. Arsenal currently 5 points ahead of Manchester City with a game in hand. Defensively, Arsenal have conceded fewer goals, but Man City have scored more goals because they have a robot playing up front for them, which has been a little bit cheating. It's been a little bit unfair. Erling Haaland with 25 goals this season has scored more goals than Chelsea, than Aston Villa, than Palace, than Forest, than West Ham, than Wolves, than Bournemouth, than Everton and Southampton. This is one player for Manchester City. And we'll have a little chat about, Haaland in its essence and itself. And we'll have a little bit of a tactical sort of debate on that. But first and foremost, I want you guys in the chat to answer this question. Was it stupid of Manchester City to sell Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus to Arsenal? Get into the chat. Maybe Pep Guardiola just wanted a little bit more competition. Maybe he just wanted to go, right, my assistant manager can take another team and I'll give him some players so we'll make the league more competitive. I don't think that's the case, but I think it's been a massive, massive mistake. Massive mistake there. Carlington in the chat. Yeah, Arsenal have enough to win the league. Johnny Five Alive. Teams need to buy the players Brighton are trying to recruit. They're going to have to start being really sneaky, Johnny, I think, in the future. Sneaking out and offering little deals here and there so nobody gets wind of it. What position does Caicedo play? He plays as a number 6 at the moment, Levy. So he's a defensive holding midfielder. Last season played more of a box-to-box midfielder under Graham Potter. Can play both roles superbly. Innocent in the chat. Damn, more goals than Chelsea. That's sad. Yeah, it's Chelsea are in a straight, like Chelsea are probably the hardest team right now to pick a best 11. Pretty impossible. Robert in the chat, yes for Jesus, no for Zinchenko. Not a bad point that. I think Jesus is a top quality player. Eddie in the chat, City don't need them. I think at times there's a few things that I'd probably look at and think City probably could do with both of them this season, but we'll talk about that from a tactical level. Ironic Arsenal, you think that Pep could take the club of United stature in his first tenure with zero experience and make them title contenders with limited budget? Arsenal will forever be underrated. Arteta's brilliant. From day one, Arteta's brilliant. Love his style and the system. Sandy in the chat, yes for Jesus, no for Zinchenko. That's been a common one. Interesting, guys. Dave is nervous now. Absolutely. Very, very nervous. If Brighton only bought these players... Sorry, if only the guy who brought these players to Brighton came to Newcastle. I generally think it's not about the players, the technical staff that have left Brighton. I think it's about the Brighton data model they've got in the background that's very, very good. Levy, it wasn't stupid since he had perfect replacement for Jesus. Haaland's had a great impact coming into City. I just think we'll talk about something in a minute where, why potentially I think it's a little bit of a mistake. My pick for the top 4 right now is exactly how the top 4... Oh, no, actually. I'm going to change that up. I'm going to go Arsenal to win the league, City second, United third, Tottenham... 4th. Tottenham, if they get it right, they will start to batter teams. And I genuinely think the Danjuma signing is brilliant. I think he's a fantastic player. I would have taken him Man United number 9. 100%. United could have arranged a loan to buy end of the season. Don't need to pay the deal until the end. I would have bought Danjuma. I think Danjuma under Erik ten Hag would have been brilliant. I think he's a fantastic player, dribbler. How much trouble he caused Man United in the Champions League last season was incredible. Was very, very good. And I think that's the kind of player that you'd want to see playing for you. Let's go to that United game to have a little look at that. Was it the first game? Young boys. Here you go. Danjuma assist at Old Trafford. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. that night. 4 shots on goal, 3 out of his 7 dribbles completed, 2 chances created. I thought he was such a threat. Basically stays high and wide on the left. One of the issues that Spurs have got right now is that Son is bang out of form right now. He's compared to last season, he is so out of form. I think this recruitment is good. The other player that's been linked with Tottenham at the moment is Pedro Porro. I think that's another position that they massively need to strengthen. Talking the the left back position the right back position for Spurs is just a bit of a mess right now. Seeing Emerson Royale play that position is just pretty horrible. But Porro, is that right? How we spell it? That's wrong. We'll go to Pedro Goncalves. So when you look at Pedro Porro, he's fantastic in the final third, and that's what Spurs need. Look at that. 1 goal, 1 assist, 112 touches, 8 chances created. 8! Pretty incredible. He's a player that will play high and wide. Basically, he's the perfect wing back for Spurs. See his position there, number 24, super high. So those 2 signings are very, very good, in my opinion. You think about Richarlison in the summer as well. I think Spurs top 4. Anyway, let's move on to the game. We spoke a lot about the Premier League, about all that good stuff. Let's dive into the match. So the question, obviously, that I asked you guys, was City correct to sell Zinchenko and Jesus? I would say, if I'm in that position, I would have not wanted them to go to the same club. I think giving, both of the players to Arsenal has made Arsenal, a very, very good side. And you think they were the 2 players that you could argue that Arsenal needed. They needed someone to play as an inverted wing back. They needed a number 9 that had the intensity. You're thinking of Aubameyang and Lacazette. Yes, Aubameyang scores goals. Lacazette's link play was great, but the intensity of Gabriel Jesus when he plays, on and off the ball, pressing, squeezing, being aggressive is simply sublime. And it's just completed Arsenal's team, and that's why I said would probably go. It was wrong for City to do that, especially Zinchenko. Zinchenko seems to be the one. The consideration of Zinchenko and why I think Zinchenko is such a big loss for City is just the form of João Cancelo. Like João Cancelo's form has just fallen off an absolute cliff this season. You look at all of his underlying numbers. Assists, goals per game, per 90, chances created per 90, passes into the final third. There's just a big drop-off. A 4.3 on SofaScore. That's probably one of the worst ratings I've seen all season. In the game, committed a penalty, didn't create a single chance, completed 87% of his passes, didn't have a single shot or dribble completed in the game, played 26 minutes, hooked by Guardiola. An absolute stinker. Charlie, welcome back, my friend. I think we got some good money for the Porro deal, as we've got a sell-on clause. I think that's a bit of a weird one in the sense of, Porro going and playing. Saw Porro play Santa Clara in Lisbon last May. He really stood out. A quick search and he was on loan from City. Surprise, surprise from Eddie. Big shout out to Eddie. D, it's the model of the club. For City players, going there, they won't be held to ransom. It might hurt, but signing players like Haaland become easier because they treat the players well. No, I think that's a very fair point. Was his drop-off post-World Cup? No, Cancelo has not been good this whole season. For his high standards, and that's the big thing, he's that you'd say the Champions League games against Dortmund and Seville, top quality. You'd say performance against Southampton, he was absolutely brilliant, scored that brilliant goal against Southampton. Remember cutting him from the left-hand side. But that's kind of been it from him this season. So that's been a humongous issue. You're looking at, like we mentioned, his key passes have gone down per game from 1.1 last season to just 0.8 this season. General passing stats diminished as well, averaging just 1.9 tackles per game. Big drop off from last season's 2.3 tackles per game. One of the good things for Manchester City, though, has been the emergence of Rico Lewis, a player that I absolutely think has got the talent. Massive amount of talent. I saw him play or come on in the Champions League this season. I went to the City Copenhagen game, and I believe, was it the Copenhagen game? Yeah, and he came off the bench and just played this inverted role like he'd been doing it his entire life. Really, really impressive. So to kind of go back to the question, sorry, we're bouncing around the box right now, but I think a big mistake to let Zinchenko go. It's difficult to say that pre-season with Cancelo's form from last season, but you still have to have the option there. I just don't think City have got a like-for-like replacement that kind of works the system so well. And talking about working the system, we'll have a little look at Zinchenko and his role for Arsenal, and it's the perfect role for Arteta's system, and we can see it with the average positions in certain games. You got him number 35, really tucked inside in an inside position. And we'll just have a look at a few different examples of him playing this role for Arsenal against Manchester United, and then the goal. But yeah, Zinchenko, Charlie and if Zinchenko wants to leave, you kind of need to sell him. But is it right to sell it to one of your rivals, would be the question. And obviously City did that with Sterling. And the argument, the counter argument to my point there is that Premier League has the most money in the world. You're not going to get the same amount of value from any other club, so you kind of might need to do it. It's just so difficult. So difficult. Zinchenko, the leader. So let's take a look at some clips against Manchester United. Again, United defending in a bit of a kind of 4-4-2 shape. Aggressive high up the pitch. The issue for Manchester United is they couldn't control Zinchenko. Or if they tried to control Zinchenko, Granit Xhaka became free. We could see that in a number of these clips, with Zinchenko clearly moving into the inside position, Partey dropping to get on the ball, Ben White into a holding position, Odegaard in the inside right, and Martinelli just making that move out wide. So the issue that Manchester United found is if they wanted to squeeze high in the 4-4-2, number one, the spacing is atrocious from Manchester United here. Look at this spacing between their midfield and defence. What's going on? But you got to give credit to how Arsenal play with their 5 attackers. Zinchenko moving inside, getting in between United's narrow midfield and attacking block, waiting for the correct moment. And as Arsenal do, they pull you one way and then they utilise the other side. We could see Zinchenko's freedom and space in that central area when Arsenal have pulled United to the left-hand side of the pitch. Pop it back inside. Again, the plays come in. We're starting to see a bit of a problem for Manchester United with the space that both Martinelli and Xhaka have got on the far side. Again, the strategy for Arsenal is pull you one way and then smash you on the other side. Simple positional football. That's basically the simple way to describe positional play, or fuego de possession, or whatever it's called in Spanish, or positional spiel in German. This is the way. So as you see, the pressing structure of Man United is quite good, but the problem comes when Zinchenko is the one that's having to be engaged, and this is the beauty of playing a inverted fullback. I think playing an inverted fullback, inverted wingback is the strategy right now in European football. It is the way to go. It's so effective. And I think just one at the moment is the one, like creating that diamond for your team, creating that diamond in your team where you've got 4 players in the central area, but you've still got the width, you've still got the depth of the attack. Sorry, I need to put Eddie Nketiah in because, poor old Gabby's injured at the moment. Anyway, back to the tactical side. So yeah, creating that diamond, so difficult to play against because you've got to be able to deal with Zinchenko, who's going to get on the ball, but then Xhaka's going to become a ball option. And that's what kind of happens in this pattern of play that we're looking at now. United's lines, again, too much space. What is Aaron Wan-Bissaka doing at the top of screen there? Absolutely atrocious. What is that positioning? Never be deeper than your fullbacks, than your centre halves. As United press, you can see United have got a 6 on 5 in this screenshot right now. Again, little box football. You're going to play through with ease. Zinchenko, the key guy, drawing Scott McTominay in. Then McTominay being stuck in a halfway house. You can see that there where McTominay's picking up 2 players. He's picking up Xhaka, who's pulled into a wide area. Really good rotational football. And Zinchenko deep, which leaves Scott in a position where he's just stuck. I don't think that's Scott McTominay's fault. I think that is the fault of the fullback. Your fullback needs to be engaging. You need to be able to rotate round where your fullback picks up the player that's dropped, and then your centre-back picks up the wide player. That's what you've got to do if you're playing proper pressing, narrow, aggressive football. Unfortunately, that's not the case because you can see United are concerned with not only Eddie Nketiah. Again, Eriksen should be picking him up, which should allow Raphael Varane to pick up the wide player, and Wan-Bissaka should play through. But Arsenal's shape with Zinchenko overloads Man United's midfield. They simply get through, create a pretty decent chance for Eddie Nketiah. Now we've got the move that won the game for Arsenal. And I think we can see the completeness of Zinchenko's game right now. Zinchenko in a inverted position, exactly where he should be. He's protecting if Arsenal lose the ball, can instantly put pressure on the football, but also he's a ball-playing option. We could see his movement here is absolutely superb, that as soon as he's understood that Xhaka, top of screen here, might be dropping to get on the ball, the space becomes out wide. Xhaka becomes a nominal defensive midfielder, and Zinchenko works out. You can see Granit Xhaka in this double pairing here, this double pivot here. Zinchenko spots the space. Arsenal's entire strategy, as we mentioned before, pull you down one side of the pitch, and then we'll kill you on the other side. And that's exactly what happens here. Really good play from Arsenal, from Zinchenko. Bit of ball retention, again, further coaxing United's teams on that right-hand side of the pitch. The switch from Partey to Trossard, and now we're seeing the danger. Zinchenko on the overlap, 2v1 Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Again, Bruno's positioning here is very, very poor, especially given the game state and the time. Very, very poor positioning. Then we got a 2v1 out wide. Zinchenko, perfect overlap, perfect cutback. Arsenal score through Eddie Nketiah. But the importance of Zinchenko is so big, and it kind of going back to my initial point is, like, this is the missing part for Arsenal, and City have sold them in. And again, now they're in a title race. So very, very interesting. I would say that, obviously with the emergence of Eddie Nketiah this season, 10 goals in all comps, maybe the Gabriel Jesus signing isn't as important as the Zinchenko signing. Apologies. That being said, Gabriel Jesus adds another edge to Arsenal, but Nketiah has come in and provided a really good outlet through the middle. Now with Trossard also here, also at Arsenal as well, you've got the option to play that false nine. So again, the issue I think for Arsenal is there's no one that can come in and replace Zinchenko. He's quite unique within the squad. Hence why I thought it was bad for City to sell him, but they had to sell him to somebody. Moving on to Manchester City. So let's get Arsenal back into their kind of defensive formation, the 4-2-3-1. Again, they go 4-1-4-1 when they get the ball. The interesting side with Manchester City is kind of how you're getting the players in at the moment. Against Manchester United, I thought there was a bit of a problem with how Arsenal dealt with some of the play. How City dealt with the United man-to-man system. So, in terms of let's jump back into the actual game between the two sides, talking City. So Man United, and then went to the Man City game. It was a very zonal game where City had Mahrez, obviously in that attacking area. Bernardo Silva was in for Gundogan. And basically what United did to deal with City's front five players is they went man for man on them. So what Arsenal could do that worked really well for United is very much go man to man, where Xhaka's picking up De Bruyne, Bernardo's being picked up by Partey, and Odegaard's picking up Rodri. Because the issue that City have got this season is that Haaland isn't as proficient as a Kevin De Bruyne, as a Bernardo Silva, at dropping off the line and receiving to feet. That's the concern, in a sense, is that, there's not as much danger of having the ball getting played. Let's say City have worked it from centre half. The ball getting played to Haaland getting on the ball, Haaland getting himself turned, and then the threat of the wide players. It's just not the same versus having let's say Gundogan comes in for De Bruyne, and De Bruyne is playing that as that position. That's a different game, isn't it? That is a completely different game. United could not have played the way they played against City if City had played a false nine through the middle. And that's my concern with Haaland, is that it's not the same quality when receiving in between the line, which has been one of City's biggest strengths in the Premier League. Look, you can't ignore Haaland's goals. He scores goals for fun. But where I think the issue comes is in these bigger games that City don't have the same ability to overload the opponent's midfield, to get someone in between the lines. And I think that's a problem. I think it's a problem that's easily fixable. You look at how to fix this issue. Kevin De Bruyne playing deeper in midfield. You switch in Phil Foden to Haaland. And Haaland actually starting wide left. Haaland basically playing as a left winger with a false nine in the middle. That now, look at that threat. That threat is crazy scary. I think the threat of Haaland sprinting into that channel, that's where City need to go, in my opinion. I think City in these bigger games, that when they're going to play a more of a 4-3-3 structure, obviously we've got kind of the diamond shape on screen right now, more of that 4-3-3 structure, That is so important, I think, for City to move their side on. Otherwise, Haaland becomes an issue where you play these bigger games and they can't utilise that playing between the lines that's been so brutal in these big games. How many times has Kevin De Bruyne had a madness against Arsenal or Man United or Chelsea in that number 10 area? So that could be the other option, is that Haaland plays, that City rotate around and you got Bernardo in midfield, KDB in that centre position, and then you got KDB threading through balls to Mahrez and Haaland. That is very, very dangerous, and that's how I'd line City up in that shape. The other concern for City right now is kind of in defence has been a little bit all over the place. I'd say that the City are probably at a point where they've created a little bit of balance in there. Going with Ake, Laporte, Akanji, and then the right back position has been all over the place with Walker in there. What we're actually seeing is at the end of the game against who did City play? The last game City played in the league was Wolves. We saw at the end of the game actually those four playing there as a back four. And actually John Stones playing as the inverted player, which I think he's got talent for, which I think he could do a good role. But in the 4-3-3 that I think City should play in the bigger games, it would look like this, where you've got KDB in the middle, Haaland wide left, Mahrez wide right. Mark in the chat, Foden is best down the middle. So again, that could be another option. Bernardo seems to be out of favour at the moment for City. So having Phil Foden through the middle as a false nine, De Bruyne right central midfield, I think that would be very difficult to go. Mr. Righteous, if Arteta keeps the winning lineup tonight, count it done. Arsenal 3, Manchester City 1, brace from Eddie Nketiah. I do actually like Eddie Nketiah against this City backline. I think his pace will be very threatening to them. I think that's something that Man United did really well on the counter, was get Marcus Rashford into these types of positions, and Eddie Nketiah is the perfect forward for that, to kind of do that. Obviously, Gabriel Jesus would have had the intensity, but I think Nketiah is perfect for that. So, final little point on this game, the similarities between Odegaard and Kevin De Bruyne. Both are supreme players, both have a great weight of pass, excellent executing through balls, but I'd say tactically they're a little different. We made a video on the main channel about this, how Kevin De Bruyne is more of an inside right player that will underlap a lot more, that will cross from deep a lot more, that will cross from the byline more, whereas arguably Odegaard is more of that player that's going to make that late move and get into the penalty area. Odegaard's expected goals in open play is better than any other Premier League attacking midfielder or central midfielder right now. So he's kind of that goal-scoring midfielder for Arsenal at the moment. So the difference between De Bruyne and Odegaard is, I'd say, De Bruyne more of a natural volume creator, whereas Odegaard kind of waits for the right moment when the space has been opened up, and then he'll find the through ball. I think that's one of the best traits of Odegaard. His decision-making is so good. Retains possession when it's needed, moves the ball on when it's needed, links with Saka and Martinelli so well, completed more passes to Saka than any other Arsenal player. That link is absolutely vital in the final third as Arsenal move into their build-up structure. And I'd say Kevin De Bruyne is a lot more direct in the final third. We'll look for those, cutting passes in between defenders, the outside, the boots, the flicks, the through balls and so forth. I just think, they're very different players, but both absolutely brilliant at the jobs that they do for their sides. Very exciting to see two top quality attacking midfielders in the league. Odegaard is the key player for Arsenal at the moment. He's got 5 goal involvements in his last 5 league games since Boxing Day. He's averaging 2.7 shots per game and 2.2 key passes. So Odegaard's got more shots than chances created this season, which I find, again, interesting. Profile. Odegaard, that goal-scoring midfielder that we're slowly getting into the narrative. We're looking at his overall statistics. So chances created is at 2.2, as we see there, key passes per game, but it's 2.7 shots per game. Shoots more than he creates. Whereas the opposite, the man on the opposite side, Kevin De Bruyne, it's more chances created than shots. And I'm not saying Kevin De Bruyne is a bad goal-scoring midfielder. Obviously, 15 goals last season speaks for itself. But they're just a little bit different in terms of players. 3.4 key passes per game, 2.4 shots. So they both shoot, they both create, but Odegaard slightly more as a goal-scoring midfielder, maybe more like a Lampard. And Kevin De Bruyne is that volume creator, which is kind of great to watch, great to see. Guys, that is the chat on Arsenal versus City. Get your score predictions into the comments right now. We're going to be diving into a little bit of Manchester United versus Reading very, very soon. But do get into the chat your score predictions for this humongous game in the FA Cup. Arguably, whichever team wins this are going to get to the final. Both teams super strong. Both teams playing some really good stuff right now. And I am so upset that I've got to get the train when this game's being played tonight. That is one of the sad things of life. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to go work and you've got to do it. You've got to get it done. You've got to get the job done. And that's fun. Departure. Been looking forward to Saliba versus Haaland. That's going to be a cracking battle. William Saliba's been one of the best centre-backs in the league this season for me. Would be interesting to see Julian Alvarez start tonight. I've got a feeling Pep might rotate. It's a typical Pep Guardiola thing, isn't it? When we build this game up, it's going to be a big one, and then he just drops one of the players. But that is, unfortunately, life. Life that we have to accept in here. Score predictions coming in thick and fast. Essential is going to go 3-1 to the Arsenal. Ahmed's going to go 2-2. Christopher's going to go 2-1 to City. Mr. Righteous, Mudryk cost more than what Arsenal paid for both Zinchenko and Jesus. It's pretty crazy in terms of the spending. And Federal, Arsenal better on form, ATM, but City in terms of quality. City is clear. I think it's quite close, but it's a good battle between them two. It's going to be a really good game of football. That's what I'm kind of excited for. The football, as we all are, as we all do. Really enjoy it. Arsenal 2-0 from Nikolai. Big shout out to Nikolai. Jimmy, I don't know if Arsenal make the final. If we draw a weaker team, Arteta will play the B team. And our B team has been pretty rubbish this season. Prem Saga is going to go 3-2 to Arsenal. Right, let's move on to the next big one. Man United versus Reading in the FA Cup. 4th round, that is correct. Play on Saturday evening. I've got myself a little ticket to the game. I'm pretty excited. Can't wait for it. This comes obviously after United played midweek against Nottingham Forest in the League Cup semi-final first leg and absolutely blew the show away. Sir Marcus Rashford with an unbelievable, brilliant goal on the left-hand side. But I thought United played really, really well. I really like the look of this team at the moment. Maybe with a Diogo Dalot in, then you've got a top-quality footballing side. I think there's some real positives in there. Some more score predictions coming in. Innocent's going 2-2. And Pele is going to go 1-0 to the Arsenal. Mark in the chat saying Foden is long due a goal. But I think one of the most impressive things for Manchester United has been Wout Weghorst. I love this signing. I've said it clearly on the internet that Wout Weghorst would be a brilliant signing for Manchester United. And I tell you what, his link play, his work rate, his ability to play on the last line and poach, like he took his goal against Nottingham Forest, brilliant. Completed 100% of his passes versus Nottingham Forest. Brilliant statistic for a striker that's linking the play. Absolutely superb. Thought his back-to-goal play was brilliant. And I think it gives something that United don't have, that physical threat. Links the play better than Martial, better in the box than Martial, better goal scoring than Martial. I think Wout Weghorst is the guy for Manchester United. So let's take a little bit of analysis, a look from an analytical perspective. His performances in the red of United. What I like about his game is he's really good at little movements and then getting into a little bit of Weghorst space, or the Wout zone, as we like to call it. Very underrated, damn right. But this is just a little bit of play, 12 minutes into the game. Rashford looking for that inside pass. Weghorst, a little bit of movement off the line. What I like about Weghorst and why I feel we're getting the best out of Bruno Fernandez is that Weghorst draws players to him when receiving the ball, which opens up space for Bruno Fernandez to get into a second striker position or a natural attacking midfield position. Weghorst receiving to feet, again, technically absolutely superb. Receiving to feet. And these types of motions create situations where we've got a 2v1 now on the far side, left back, with Anthony and with Bruno Fernandez. These little touches, the strength, the hold-up play, absolutely brilliant. Creating a situation for Anthony to spin in behind. cut inside and just shoot over the bar. Obviously, the cutback is on there. I'd like Antony to utilise that cutback and play it to Bruno Fernandez. But I thought the hold-up play from Weghorst in this moment, absolutely superb. Dropping off the line, receiving to feet, little flick, getting Bruno in, Bruno getting Antony, and Antony just shooting wide. Got another moment, Weghorst with his double movement, again, demanding the ball into his feet, shaping to spin in behind the defence, this time with Eriksen, looking to find him. But then stopping, as Eriksen's not played the ball, receiving to feet. I love that about him because I've seen so many United strikers over the last 10 years that would make that first motion and then sulk. Weghorst don't give two monkeys about that. Weghorst is the guy that's going to do it. Going to spin in behind, going to drop off, going to pop round. It's so refreshing to watch. Lovely little spin in behind, receiving to feet, and again, linking with Christian Eriksen. He's such a good target. You know, when you build a possession-based side, for me, either you have a forward that's tall, that's strong, that's good at receiving to feet, or a false nine. They're the two options for me. And Weghorst, obviously, is the first of that. He's that tall, strong target man. Eriksen, in this moment, again, creates a little situation where Antony can receive as well. And there's humongous space for the overlap of the fullback. If Aaron Wan-Bissaka was a little bit faster in that moment, he attacks that space in behind. If it's Diogo Dalot, United probably score a goal from this. What I liked about Antony as well, we'll come on to this, Antony taking up more central positions. Love that in this game. Showed a lot more completeness in this match. But unfortunately, Aaron Wan-Bissaka doesn't make the run. United can't play through, but it all comes through that lovely little bit of movement, spinning in behind, demanding the ball to feet, little 1-2 with Christian Eriksen, then United could get in. And now we'll talk about the moment of the game. Again, I mentioned Antony and his improvements. It's another really good moment for him. We'll go back to talking Weghorst, but I think the Antony point, we'll kind of jump in and we'll make it now. Antony's positioning was a lot better. As you can see, the dark redness on the heat map on SofaScore is where, they're receiving the ball or they're making the most actions. Usually what we see with Antony is it's just wide right. What I want to see is more of this. Him receiving inside channel. Ultimately, if you become the ultimate footballer, you need to be able to do both. You need to be able to receive wide and attack players on the outside, inside, come back, retain possession. You need to do a lot. But also, you need to be able to receive inside in those moments and allow space for the fullback on the overlap. What I talk about completeness in both ways. So you're basically playing as an inside forward and you're playing as a winger. But it's dependent on where the fullback is. So if the fullback's wide, you're playing as an inside forward. If the fullback's narrow, you're playing as an outer winger. And I think that needs to happen more often. The motion between the two, these two wide players, like playing on an axis in a sense, where one moves out, the other one moves in, one moves wide, the other one moves inside. That will give more difficulty for the opposite. And I think at times Antony is too easy to defend against in the Premier League so far. Too many times we see him drive wide, slow himself down, try and do his skill, get done by the fullback. What I liked about Antony against Nottingham Forest, these types of plays, inside, this passing move was brilliant. Absolute Erik Ten Hag ball 101. Antony into the feet of Bruno Fernandez. Driving through on the carry, let's say, Bruno Fernandez involved in the passing move later on, but direct ball into Weghorst's feet. Again, Weghorst, look at that strength. Joe Worrell isn't a walkover. Brilliant strength from Weghorst. Lovely link play with Bruno Fernandez. Antony, third man run, should score. Really should score. Probably, you're looking maybe going for that near post finish. Natural on his left foot to smash it into that top corner. But the improvement was there, and it comes from Weghorst's hold-up play. And I absolutely love that for Manchester United. I think it's fantastic. And just one final example of Weghorst's off-the-ball movement. We've all seen the clip against the first game against Fulham, where he pulls the defenders out and opens up the space for Bruno Fernandes. This is a little bit about the move that he pulls to pull the centre-half away from Marcus Rashford. So Rashford nutmegs Partey. Weghorst's run creates a little bit of space for Rashford to cut inside. That run is absolutely perfect. And you can see where the defender's been drawn to, just outside the penalty area, which opens up the space for Rashford to shoot. He can't get close to Rashford. It's just brilliant centre-forward play again. I am delighted with Wout Weghorst. I'm delighted with what he's brought to Manchester United, but also Antony's inside position. Statistics for him, 91% passes completed, 3 chances created, 4 shots, directly involved in 7 shots for Manchester United. A brilliant performance for me, one of his best in a United shirt. But I think there's improvements. Both players are, getting better. I'd like to see the fluidity between Bruno and Antony a lot more. I'd like to see that interchange between the two players. I'd like to see, Antony starting in that narrow inside left position. Bruno and Fernandez going wide. I'd like to see that fluidity in the game. Those two interchanging positions. But, work in progress, Manchester United. Very much in. Football, 60 million for Caicedo seems cheap. Absolutely. I would love him at Manchester United. Where are he coming at Man United? Defensive midfield. Could play that dual role where he's box to box, but he's also, could play as a number 6. Casemiro box to box. Absolutely fantastic signing. Would really complete United's team. Man United go and do the business right now before Arsenal do it. But yeah, let's move on to the game against Reading. This is very much a game United need to simply win at a canter. Reading this season, sitting about mid-table in the Championship. They are a hot and cold side. They are playing Julian Hoylett as a left wing-back. They have the likes of Andy Carroll. Tom Ince is their top scorer, directly involved in 9 goals in the Championship this season. At 30 years old, that surprised me a little bit in there. Jeff Hendrick, ex-Burnley's obviously going to give them energy in midfield, but you've got to target Julian Hoylett. Julian Hoylett's basically played his entire career as an attacker. A striker, attacking midfielder, high left winger. Now he's playing right wing back. That's an area where Marcus Rashford should get a lot of joy on that left-hand side. Obviously, Rashford was pulled off early against Forest midweek, so I think he's going to have an absolute field day up against Junior Hoylett. They lost 4-0 last week to Reading. United simply will win this easy at a canter. Guys, get your score predictions in for Manchester United versus Reading. I think it's a simple game for Man United. It really is. Get your score predictions in right now. Honest thoughts on Antony's progress, Shane? I think he's progressing nicely. Again, like price tags in football. Yeah, look, it's a lot of money, a lot of cash. But you've got to give players like that time. Coming from a different league, they're developing into a new system, new country, new shape. And again, I think it's been decent. Pellistri to start. I would start the first team, Shane, and then make the subs. So I'd start Antony, I'd start Rashford, start Bruno, and then I'd make the subs after that. And I'd love to see Pellistri get some minutes. I thought his threat in behind has been great. And something that Erik ten Hag spoke about in his press conference, the vertical threat that he gives United, really, really good. Mahad in the chat, welcome back, my friend. 3-0 to Manchester United. Get your score predictions in right now. I'm just going to give a little bit of a refresh to the internet, see if anything's happening right now. The only news we've got right now still is that Caicedo, £60 million bid for Arsenal, which is pretty wild. Sean Dyche to be appointed as Everton manager. What's that? Everton manager after Bielsa offered to coach the under-21s until the summer. What is going on? JP Morgan set to finance Serie A for up to €1 billion. Some really unsavoury scenes between Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid at the moment. There's just seen something awful in there. Other score predictions. Please get them involved. Why don't United players underlap? I think it's something that's work in progress. We saw Eriksen do that last week against Fulham. So we just need to see more of that. We really do. Didn't know you did lives. Welcome, Mikey. Welcome. Every Friday at 12:30. We'll also try and get some more in the schedule as well. Opinions on Company's Burnley. I think they'll be great in the Premier League, Bob. I can't wait to watch them in the Premier League. They'll be a fantastic side. Let's finish things off then talking briefly on De Zerbi and his side who is facing Liverpool in the Premier League. I think the big question, chat, do you want us to do a video on Brighton? One of the best teams to watch in the league right now. They really are. So we could knock out a little main channel video on how they play, how they progress things, what the differences are between Graham Potter's Brighton and De Zerbi's. Because I think De Zerbi's Brighton are better. And they played Liverpool in a recent game at Anfield and absolutely blew them away. The possession football was so good in this game. So good. They set up with a kind of 4-2-3-1 shape, but very much was them building with the two centre-halves and the two defensive midfielders in Caicedo, number 25, and McAllister, number 10. You had Pascal Gross moving into an inverted position. You had width from Estepinha, wide left. Absolutely superb. And Solly Marsh, 4 chances created, 2 goals and an assist. What a performance. But I love the shape from Brighton. It's so good. Liverpool's fullbacks were pinned with Solly Marsh and Mitoma. They're 2 central players, Lallana and Ferguson, dropped off the line supremely well to get involved in the play. It was just a really good performance. Mark, Bielsa will take over from Dyche next season. Dyche's defensive tax is likely to keep... So they're literally doing that. So Bielsa's going to take a... That is crazy. Absolutely crazy. But Liverpool are in all sorts of problems at the moment. The midfield is... an absolute mess right now. The attack is a mess right now. You've got players that are massively underperforming. Mohamed Salah at this point last season was on 15 goals and 10 assists in the Premier League. He's on 7-4 now. In the Premier League, only Darwin Núñez has missed. Darwin Núñez and some other player. Let me quickly jump to it. Big chances missed. Only Darwin Núñez and Haaland have missed more big chances than Mohamed Salah. He's having a very off season. Núñez is, yeah, absolutely. But there is a real problem for Liverpool right now. They need to sort their midfield out. They need to sort their attack out. They need to sort their balance out. They need to sort the pressing out. It's all dropped off. And Chelsea outplayed them last weekend. They really did. Chelsea should have won the game. Their subs were much better for Chelsea. They made a much bigger impact in there. And I do think, in the long term, Liverpool have really got to start fixing things up. The whole Gakpo, Salah, Elliott being organised like that is just, for me, crazy. I would be going Salah through the middle, Elliott right, Gakpo left, front three. The spacing between the midfield and the attack was so big as well. There's a lot of tactical problems that Klopp needs to fix. And arguably, they need to sign a DM. Caicedo would be perfect for Liverpool as well. Caicedo is that good that he would improve Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, and Manchester United. And probably would improve Man City this season in their midfield because they're struggling to find a combo. Chelsea bid incoming. Just my theory from Mark. Oh, fair. Because Bielsa said that he didn't want to. He didn't think the players were fast enough, didn't he? Absolutely smashed it. Akeem in the chat, tactics comparison video about the Serie A title race. We did a video about Napoli earlier on, about Napoli in space, so go and check that one out. But yeah, this should be a good game of football. Brighton versus Liverpool. Brighton absolutely destroyed them at Anfield. Joel Matip having a very poor game by his high standards. Get your score predictions in for this last game, guys, and get any more questions that you want me to answer into the chat. So some more news coming out today. Brighton midfielder Moise Caicedo is desperate to force a move through to Arsenal or Chelsea before the week's deadline. Caicedo is prepared to submit a transfer request. But we want Brighton to play vibes football. Caicedo, don't do it to us. I'd love to see him just play to the end of the season at Brighton. I just want to keep enjoying it. Really do want to keep enjoying it. Which do you think would be a better fit for Arsenal, Caicedo or Zubimendi? I would go Caicedo. I think Caicedo Rice is the Arsenal's midfield is probably the best in the league. Have you never been asked to do punditry work? I did punditry work for Manchester United's TV channel. Moved on from that at the 2 seasons ago, maybe. But yeah, it's a dream. BT, Sky, call me. Absolutely call me. Because we could do some Solly Marsh analysis on the telly. Or some Caicedo analysis on the telly. But yeah, that would be great, Shay. Long-term dreams and aspirations. But guys, if that's that for today, please comes Caicedo from Mickey in the chat. I think it's just brilliant. Brilliant footballer. Very good. Should someone buy McAllister? Absolutely. When I talk about brilliant footballers, McAllister is also a brilliant footballer. Like, I love the Brighton midfield. It's why I watch them so much. Like, I'm a big fan of good midfielders. And he's another one that's just absolutely superb. Absolutely brilliant. And yeah, I'd take McAllister at United 100%. He'd be perfect playing that 8 role, you know. He would be so good at playing this kind of box-to-box 8 role. Let's just quickly show you what I mean. So for Manchester United, McAllister in that position, basically, where, you know, in attacking sense, he moves into that offensive position. Casemiro sole holder. That, he'd be spot on. Absolutely spot on for United. I'd take either Caicedo or McAllister. I think both are brilliant. Really, really good. McAllister is your older brother. We do both have ginger beards, actually. Probably got same heritage. Same fathers. But yeah, no, Timo Werner. But guys, yeah, that's that for today's stream. Hope you've enjoyed yourselves today. We will be back next Friday, 12:30, Premier League preview, where we'll be diving into more action, more chat, more analysis. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you are new around here, tell your pals about it.